The day my own son looked me in the eyes and pretended not to recognize his own child was the day I realized I'd spent 58 years being too nice for my own good. My name is Eleanor Mitchell, but everyone calls me Ellie. I'm 58 years old, divorced for nearly 20 years now, and I've spent most of my adult life putting everyone else first. I have 2 children, my daughter Sarah, who's 35 and lives across the country with her husband and their twins, and my son Jason, who's 32 and the reason I'm telling this story today. I've always been the kind of mother who sacrificed everything for her children. When their father Mark walked out on us for his 20-something secretary, how cliché, right? I worked 2 jobs to keep our suburban home and make sure they could stay in the same schools with their friends. I didn't date. I didn't travel. I didn't pursue my own dreams of going back to school. Everything went into making sure my kids had what they needed. Sarah turned out great. She's a pediatrician now, married to a wonderful man, and they have beautiful 5-year-old twins. But Jason was always more complicated. He was 19 when he met Carly in college. She was sweet but incredibly immature, and I wasn't surprised when their relationship became tumultuous. What did surprise me was the phone call I received one night during their junior year. "Mom!" Jason's voice cracked. "Carly's pregnant." My heart sank. They were too young, too unstable. But I took a deep breath and asked, "What are you going to do?" "We're keeping it," he said firmly. "But we need help." And that's how, at age 53, I became not just a grandmother but practically a third parent to little Noah. Carly's parents had disowned her for getting pregnant, and the young couple needed support. I offered them my spare bedroom, helped with midnight feedings, and even cut back my hours at work to help with childcare. Noah was the light of my life from the moment he was born. He had Jason's green eyes and sandy brown hair, but Carly's button nose and dimples. He was a happy baby, always smiling, rarely fussy. Jason and Carly's relationship, however, continued to deteriorate. They'd fight, make up, fight again. When Noah was 2, Carly finally had enough. She left in the middle of the night, leaving only a note saying she wasn't cut out to be a mom. She didn't even say goodbye to Noah. Jason was devastated, but I assured him we'd figure it out together. I took even more time off work to care for Noah while Jason finished his degree in business. When he graduated and got a job offer in Chicago, about 3 hours from our suburban Michigan home, I supported his decision to go. "What about Noah?" I asked. Jason looked uncomfortable. "Mom, I can't take care of him and start a new career. Could he stay with you?" "Just until I get settled." I should have seen the red flags then, but Noah was already calling my house home, and I couldn't bear the thought of uprooting him. "Of course," I said. "We'll visit often." Those visits became less and less frequent. First it was every weekend, then once a month, then on holidays. Jason would call regularly at first, video chatting with Noah, but those calls grew shorter and less frequent too. Noah called me Gamma, and as far as he was concerned, my house was his home. I'd formally retired by then, living off my pension and savings, devoting myself to raising my grandson. I enrolled him in preschool, took him to soccer practice, nursed him through colds and scraped knees. I was his mother in all but name. "When's Daddy coming?" Noah would ask sometimes, his big green eyes so like Jason's, looking up at me hopefully. "Daddy's working hard in the big city," I'd say. "He loves you very much and will visit when he can." I didn't tell Noah that I'd been paying for Jason's apartment in Chicago for the first year, or that I'd dipped into my retirement savings to help with his student loans. I didn't mention that I was still paying for his cell phone plan, or that I'd put aside college savings for Noah from my limited income. When Noah turned 5 and started kindergarten, I realized we needed to formalize our arrangement. Called Jason. "I think we should talk about getting some legal guardianship paperwork in place for Noah," I said. "Just so I can make decisions for school and medical care without issues." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Actually, Mom," Jason finally said, "I've been meaning to talk to you about that. I got a promotion and I'm finally in a good place financially. I think it's time for Noah to come live with me." My heart dropped to my stomach. I'd been caring for Noah for 3 years at that point, most of his life. He barely knew Jason anymore. But I reminded myself that Jason was Noah's father, and I'd always said this arrangement was temporary. That's wonderful, Jason. When were you thinking?" "Next month." I've got a nice 2-bedroom apartment now in a good school district. I spent the next few weeks preparing Noah for the change, showing him pictures of his dad's apartment, helping him pick out special toys to take with him. I was devastated inside but tried to stay positive for Noah's sake. The day before Jason was due to arrive, Noah crawled into my lap during our bedtime story. "Gamma, do I have to go with Daddy? I want to stay with you." I hugged him tight, blinking back tears. "Your daddy loves you very much, sweetie. And you'll come visit me often. This is going to be a big adventure." Jason arrived the next day driving a brand new BMW. I raised my eyebrows but didn't comment. "Nice car," I said instead. "Part of the promotion package," he replied with a grin I hadn't seen in years. Noah was shy around Jason at first, hiding behind my legs. It broke my heart, but by the end of the day, Jason had won him over with promises of a new bike and a puppy in Chicago. As Jason packed Noah's things into his fancy car, I handed him a binder. "What's this?" he asked. "Everything about Noah. His medical records, his favorite foods, his bedtime routine. The names of his friends from kindergarten." My voice cracked slightly. "And the name of the pediatrician in Chicago I researched for you." Jason looked uncomfortable. "Thanks, Mom. You've been amazing." I hugged Noah tightly, inhaling the scent of his hair, memorizing the feel of his little arms around my neck. "Be good for Daddy. Call Gamma anytime. I love you to the moon and back." "Love you to the moon and back and to the stars," he replied, our special saying. I stood in the driveway waving until the BMW disappeared around the corner, then went inside and cried for hours. The first week was the hardest. My house felt too quiet, too empty. Noah called every night at first, telling me about his new room and his new school. Jason seemed to be doing well with him, and I tried to be happy about that. But after a few weeks, the calls became less frequent. When I called Jason, he often didn't pick up. When I texted asking for a video chat with Noah, there were always excuses. "He's at a playdate. We're out at the park. He's already asleep." I tried not to be paranoid, but something felt off. After 2 months of increasingly sporadic communication, I decided to surprise them with a visit. I baked Noah's favorite chocolate chip cookies, packed a small suitcase, and made the 3-hour drive to Chicago. Jason's apartment building was in an upscale area with a doorman. I gave my name, explaining I was there to see my son and grandson. "Mr. Mitchell? I don't believe he has a child living with him, ma'am," the doorman said with confusion. My blood ran cold. There must be a mistake. My grandson Noah has been living with him for 2 months now. The doorman looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Mitchell lives alone as far as I know. But let me call up to his apartment." After a brief conversation on the phone, the doorman nodded. "You can go up. Apartment 1105. The elevator ride to the 11th floor felt endless. Had Jason moved? Was the doorman new and uninformed? My mind raced with possibilities, none of them good. When Jason opened the door, his face registered shock, then something like guilt. "Mom? What are you doing here?" "I wanted to surprise Noah," I said, trying to peek past him into the apartment. It was immaculate, no toys in sight. "Where is he?" Jason's face paled. "Mom, we need to talk. Come in." I stepped into the apartment with growing dread. It was beautifully furnished, far more expensively than a starting business salary should allow, but there was no evidence a child lived there. No drawings on the refrigerator. No small shoes by the door. "Where's Noah?" I asked again, my voice sharper. Jason ran a hand through his hair. "He's with my neighbor. She watches him sometimes when I have to work late." Relief flooded through me, but it was short-lived. "Let's go get him then," I said, putting down my purse. "It's not a good time," Jason hedged. "She took him to the museum today." Something wasn't adding up. "Jason, what's going on? I haven't been able to talk to Noah properly in weeks. The doorman didn't even know you had a son living here." Before Jason could answer, I heard a key in the lock. The door opened to reveal a stunning woman with sleek black hair and designer clothes. She stopped short when she saw me. "Oh, I didn't realize you had company," she said, her eyes darting between us. Jason's face had gone from pale to flushed. "Vanessa, this is my mother, Eleanor. Mom, this is Vanessa, my girlfriend." I forced a smile and shook her hand. Nice to meet you. I was just asking Jason about Noah. Apparently, he's at the museum. Vanessa looked confused. Noah? Who's Noah? The room seemed to tilt beneath my feet. I steadied myself against the wall. Noah. My grandson. Jason's son. Vanessa laughed nervously. Jason doesn't have a son. I stared at my son who wouldn't meet my eyes. Jason, what is going on? Where is Noah? Jason finally looked up. His expression a mixture of guilt and defiance. He's at your house, Mom. Where he's always been. I felt like I'd been slapped. What are you talking about? You took him 2 months ago. No, I visited 2 months ago. I never took him to live with me. The room was spinning now. But you packed his things. You said you got a promotion, a bigger apartment. I did get a promotion. And I did visit. But I never said I was taking Noah to live with me permanently. You must have misunderstood. I was speechless. I knew what he'd said. I had spent weeks preparing Noah for the move, consoling myself that it was the right thing for him to be with his father. Vanessa was looking increasingly uncomfortable. Jason, what's going on? Jason sighed dramatically. My mom helps take care of my nephew sometimes. Noah is my sister's son. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Noah wasn't just Jason's son. He was the spitting image of Jason at that age. And Sarah's twins were girls. She didn't have a son named Noah. That's a lie, I said, my voice shaking with anger. Noah is your son with Carly. Your sister has twin daughters, not a son. Vanessa's eyes widened. You have a son? You told me you've never been in a serious relationship before me. The situation was rapidly spiraling out of control. Jason looked trapped between his lies. It's complicated, he said weakly. No, it's not, I replied, my voice finding new strength. You have a 6-year-old son who has been living with me because his mother abandoned him, and you were too busy building your career to be a father. There's nothing complicated about it. Vanessa grabbed her purse. I think I should go. Vanessa, wait, Jason pleaded, but she was already headed for the door. Call me when you're ready to tell me the truth, she said coldly and left. Jason turned to me, fury in his eyes. Thanks a lot, Mom. I've been dating Vanessa for 6 months. Her father is the VP at my company. Do you know what you've just done? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What I've done? You lied about your own child. You let me believe you were finally taking responsibility, and then what? You just decided to abandon him without even telling me. Jason paced the living room. I didn't abandon him. He's with you where he's happy. Where he's always been happy. That's not the point. You told me you were taking him. You packed his things. You made promises to him about a new bike and a puppy. I was always going to bring him back to you, Jason said dismissively. I just wanted Vanessa to meet him. I was planning to introduce him as my nephew. Eventually, once things got serious between us, I would have told her the truth. I sank onto his pristine white couch, trying to process what I was hearing. So you came to my house, packed up your son's belongings, made him say goodbye to his home and his friends, drove him 3 hours away. All for what? A play date? A trial run that you decided wasn't worth it. You don't understand how hard it is, Mom. I'm just getting established in my career. Vanessa comes from an important family in Chicago. I couldn't just spring a kid on her right away. Where is Noah now? I demanded. Jason looked away. I brought him back to your house 3 days after I took him. You were grocery shopping. I told him it was just a short vacation to see where Daddy works, and that he'd be staying with Gamma, while I took care of some business trips. My mind raced, piecing things together. So the video calls, the excuses about why he couldn't talk to me, those were all lies? I had to make you think he was still with me. I knew you'd be upset when you found out, but I was going to tell you eventually. I just needed some time to figure things out with Vanessa first. I stood up, shaking with anger. Do you have any idea what you've put me through these past 2 months? Worrying about him, missing him, wondering why I wasn't allowed to speak to him. You've always been so attached to him, Jason said defensively. I knew you'd overreact like this. Overreact? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This isn't about me being attached. This is about you lying to everyone, to me, to Noah, to your girlfriend. Who even are you anymore, Jason? He didn't answer, just stared out the window at the Chicago skyline. How could you afford this place? I asked suddenly, looking around at the luxury apartment. Even with a promotion, this neighborhood is expensive. Jason shifted uncomfortably. I've been doing well. A horrible thought occurred to me. The college fund I set up for Noah. Have you been accessing that money? His silence was all the answer I needed. Jason, that was for Noah's education. I've been setting that aside from my retirement funds. I'm going to pay it back, he said quickly. With interest. The promotion is real, Mom. I'm making good money now. Good enough for a BMW and a luxury apartment, apparently, I said bitterly. Did you ever actually plan to take Noah? Or was this all about getting access to his college fund? Of course I plan to take him. Eventually. When the time is right. I gathered my purse and the cookies I'd brought, which now felt like a sad joke. I'm going home to my grandson. Your son. The one you apparently visited 3 days before abandoning again without bothering to tell me. Jason followed me to the door. Mom, please. You can't tell Vanessa about this. Her father could make my life hell at work. I turned to look at my son, this stranger who shared my blood but apparently none of my values. I won't have to tell her anything. Your lies will catch up with you on their own. The drive home was a blur of tears and rage. I called Sarah from a rest stop, needing to hear a supportive voice. He did what? She exclaimed when I explained what had happened. I'm going to kill him. Noah has been with you this whole time? And Jason's been pretending he took him. Apparently, I said, my voice hollow. I've been calling a phone that's been going straight to voicemail for 2 months, thinking I was reaching my grandson. I'm coming home, Sarah said firmly. The girls and Tom can manage without me for a few days. You shouldn't be alone right now. No, I insisted, though part of me desperately wanted her there. I just need to get home to Noah. Make sure he's okay. Mom, if Noah's been with you all along, who's been watching him while you thought he was with Jason? My blood ran cold again. I hadn't even thought about that. I don't know. Jason said he brought him back when I was grocery shopping. I guess he's been with Mrs. Peterson next door? She has a key for emergencies. Call her. Now. I'll stay on the line. With shaking hands, I dialed my neighbor's number. Eleanor. Are you having a nice trip? Mrs. Peterson answered cheerfully. Trip? I repeated. Jason said you went to visit your sister in Florida for a few weeks. Don't worry, Noah's been just fine with me. Though I am getting a bit too old for full-time childcare, dear. I closed my eyes, another wave of betrayal washing over me. Mrs. Peterson, I didn't go anywhere. Jason told me he was taking Noah to live with him in Chicago. There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. But he brought Noah back the same day. Said you had a family emergency and asked if I could watch him until you got back. I've had him for almost 8 weeks now. Jason sends money for food and such, but I'm on my way home right now, I said, already getting back into my car. I am so sorry about this. I had no idea. Is everything all right, Eleanor? No, I said honestly. But it will be. After finishing the call with my neighbor, I got back on the line with Sarah. Jason told Mrs. Peterson I went to Florida for a family emergency. She's had Noah this whole time. That absolute bastard, Sarah hissed. Mom, this is beyond lying. This is some kind of psychological warfare. What was he thinking? I don't know, I admitted, pulling back onto the highway. But I'm going to find out. The remaining drive felt endless. All I could think about was Noah, confused about why his grandmother had apparently abandoned him too, being shuttled between my neighbor's house and his father's brief visits. Had Jason been coming back regularly to maintain the lie? Or had he dumped Noah with my elderly neighbor and washed his hands of the situation? When I finally pulled into my driveway, I barely had the car in park before I was running to Mrs. Peterson's house. I rang the doorbell repeatedly until she opened it, Noah peeking out from behind her legs. Gamma, he said uncertainly. You came back. I dropped to my knees and opened my arms and he ran into them. I held him so tightly he squirmed. Too tight, Gamma. I'm sorry, sweetheart, I said, loosening my grip but not letting go. I missed you so much. Did you see the alligators in Florida? He asked innocently. My heart broke all over again. No, honey. I wasn't in Florida. There's been a big mix-up. But I'm home now, and I'm not going anywhere. Mrs. Peterson watched us with concerned eyes. Eleanor, what's going on? Jason said you had a family emergency with your sister. I don't have a sister, I said quietly, still holding Noah. Jason lied to both of us. I thought Noah was living with him in Chicago all this time. Mrs. Peterson's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my goodness. But why would he do such a thing? I'm still trying to figure that out. Thank you so much for taking care of Noah. I don't know how to repay you. She waved away my thanks. Noah's a delight. But I am relieved you're back. At my age, keeping up with a 6-year-old isn't easy. I promised to talk with her more later and brought Noah home, where I spent the evening reassuring him that I hadn't left him, that I loved him more than anything, and that he was going to stay with me from now on. After he finally fell asleep, clinging to me as if afraid I'd disappear, I sat at my kitchen table and tried to make sense of what had happened. Why would Jason go to such lengths to deceive everyone? What was he trying to accomplish? The college fund was the most obvious answer. I checked the account online and found it nearly emptied. Over $25,000 gone. Money I'd scrimped and saved while raising my grandson. Working part-time jobs even in retirement to ensure he'd have educational opportunities. But there had to be more to it than money. The elaborate deception, the manipulation, the callous disregard for both Noah's and my emotional well-being. Something wasn't adding up. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I made plans. First thing in the morning, I called my bank and removed Jason as an authorized user on all my accounts. Then I called a family lawyer and made an appointment for the following day. By the time Sarah arrived that afternoon, I had a clearer picture of what had happened. Jason had been visiting every weekend, taking Noah to parks and movies, maintaining the fiction that I was away. He'd been paying Mrs. Peterson for childcare, though not nearly enough for full-time care of a child, and had apparently told Noah that I was helping a sick relative. Gamma wasn't sick in Florida? Noah asked when Sarah arrived, still confused. No, sweetheart, Sarah said, hugging him tight. Gamma didn't go anywhere. Your daddy made a mistake. That was putting it mildly, but we were careful not to disparage Jason in front of Noah. That night, after Noah was asleep, Sarah and I sat in the kitchen drinking wine and trying to unravel Jason's motives. The money is one thing, Sarah said, but this level of deception is pathological. Did he really think he could keep this up indefinitely? I don't know, I admitted. I keep thinking I must have done something wrong in raising him, to make him turn out this way. Sarah reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Mom, stop. You were an amazing mother to both of us. Jason's choices are his own. My phone rang, startling us both. It was Jason. Should I answer it? I asked Sarah. Put it on speaker, she suggested. I did. Hello, Jason. Mom, he said, his voice slightly slurred. I've been trying to call you for hours. I've been busy taking care of your son, I replied coldly. Look, I know you're mad, but you don't understand. I had a plan. I was going to fix everything. Fix what exactly? The fact that you abandoned your child? That you emptied his college fund? That you lied to everyone in your life? I needed that money to get established, he said defensively. I was going to pay it back. And I didn't abandon Noah. He was with you where he belongs. You're better with him anyway. The casual dismissal in his tone made my blood boil. He belongs with his father, Jason. But his father decided a fancy apartment, and impressing his girlfriend's family was more important than basic honesty or parental responsibility. Vanessa broke up with me, he said, ignoring my point entirely. Thanks for that, by the way. You're welcome, Sarah chimed in sarcastically. Hi, little brother. Just so you know, you're dead to me. Jason groaned. Sarah's there? Great. The perfect child returns to point out all my failures. This isn't about failure, I said firmly. This is about choices. You chose to lie. You chose to manipulate. You chose to steal from your own son's future. I'm going to pay it back, he insisted. And I didn't steal. My name is on that account too. Not anymore, I informed him. I've removed you from all my accounts. And tomorrow, I'm filing for legal guardianship of Noah. There was silence on the other end of the line. You can't do that, he finally said. I'm his father. A father who abandoned his child and lied about it, Sarah pointed out. I don't think the courts will look too kindly on that. I didn't abandon him. He was with my mother and my neighbor, not on the streets. Without my knowledge or consent, I added. You told me he was with you. You told Mrs. Peterson I was away. You lied to your 6-year-old son about where his grandmother was. That's not normal behavior, Jason. I was trying to figure things out with Vanessa, he said, as if that explained everything. I needed time. Well, now you've got all the time in the world, Sarah said. Because Mom's going to make sure you don't get anywhere near Noah until you get some serious help. You can't keep me from my son. Watch me, I said with a conviction that surprised even me. You lost that right when you decided to use him as a pawn in whatever game you're playing. When was the last time you even asked how he was doing in school? Do you know he's having trouble with reading? That he's afraid of the water since he fell in the neighbor's pool last summer? That he cries for his mother sometimes at night even though she left years ago? Jason was silent again. I didn't think so, I continued. You know what Noah asked me today? He asked if I was going to leave again. He's terrified of being abandoned, Jason. And you played right into that fear with your selfish choices. I was coming back for him, Jason said weakly. Once things settled down with Vanessa, I was going to tell her the truth and bring him to live with us. And how many times would you have uprooted him before deciding it wasn't convenient again? Sarah demanded. Children aren't accessories you can put in storage until you're ready to play dad. I think we're done here, I said, suddenly exhausted. If you want to be part of Noah's life going forward, it will be on my terms. And those terms will include therapy, consistent visitation that you actually follow through on, and financial responsibility, including paying back every cent you took from his college fund. Or what? Jason challenged. Or I'll see you in court, I replied calmly. And I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of father and son you really are. I hung up before he could respond. Sarah and I sat in silence for a moment. Are you really going to file for guardianship? She asked finally. I nodded. I should have done it years ago. I always thought Jason would eventually step up, be the father Noah deserves. But now I see that's not going to happen, at least not anytime soon. He's going to fight you, Sarah warned. Let him try, I said, surprising myself with my resolve. I've spent my whole life putting others first. My kids, my husband, even my neighbors. For once, I'm going to fight for what's right, not what's easy. Sarah hugged me tight. That's my mom. I always knew you were a badass under all that niceness. I laughed despite everything. I guess we're about to find out. That night, as I checked on Noah one last time before bed, I watched his peaceful sleeping face and made a promise to myself and to him. No more sacrificing his well-being or my own for someone who didn't deserve it. No more enabling bad behavior out of misplaced loyalty or hope. Tomorrow would be the first day of our new life. A life where I stood up for what mattered and let go of what didn't. A life where I finally put myself and my grandson first. I had no idea how complicated that resolution would become, or how much it would cost me. But as I kissed Noah's forehead and tucked his blanket around him, I knew one thing for certain. I'd spent 58 years being too nice. It was time to be strong instead. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. Sarah had already made coffee and was helping Noah with breakfast when I came downstairs. Morning, Gamma, Noah chirped, his face smeared with maple syrup. Aunt Sarah made pancakes shaped like dinosaurs. I kissed the top of his head, breathing in the scent of his shampoo. Those look delicious, sweetheart. Sarah handed me a steaming mug of coffee. I've been thinking about Jason, she said quietly as Noah focused on devouring a T-Rex-shaped pancake. This isn't just about the money or the lies. Something's really wrong with him. I nodded, the same thought having kept me awake much of the night. I know. That's why I'm calling Dr. Martinez today. Your therapist? She's a family therapist. I'm hoping she can recommend someone who specializes in whatever this is. I gestured vaguely, unable to articulate the depth of Jason's deception. After dropping Noah at school with extra hugs and reassurances that I would absolutely be there to pick him up, Sarah and I headed to the family lawyer's office. Rita Goldman had helped me with my divorce 20 years earlier, and had become a friend over the years. Her office hadn't changed much. Still the same cozy space with bookshelves lining the walls and family photos on her desk. Rita herself had gone gray, but her sharp eyes and straightforward manner remained the same. "Let me get this straight," she said after I'd explained the situation. "Your son took his child, whom you've been raising for years, pretended he was going to parent him in Chicago, but instead dropped him back with your neighbor while telling you he had the boy. All while draining the college fund you set up?" "That about sums it up," I said. Rita removed her glasses and pinched the bridge of her nose. "In 30 years of family law, I've heard some stories, but this is a new one." "What are our options?" Sarah asked. Rita leaned back in her chair. "Well, the legal custody situation is complicated. Jason is Noah's biological father, and there's no formal custody arrangement in place. You've been the de facto guardian, Ellie, but without documentation." My heart sank. "So Jason could just take him?" "Theoretically, yes," Rita admitted. "But given the circumstances, I think we have a strong case for emergency temporary guardianship. Jason's behavior demonstrates a concerning pattern: abandonment, financial exploitation, emotional manipulation of a minor child." She tapped her pen against a legal pad. "The challenge will be proving it. Do you have any documentation of the arrangement when Noah first came to live with you?" I shook my head. "It was all verbal. Jason and Carly were living with me when Noah was born. After Carly left, Jason asked if Noah could stay with me temporarily while he got established in Chicago. That was 4 years ago. What about financial support? Has Jason been contributing to Noah's expenses?" "Sporadically," I admitted. "He'll sometimes send money for clothes or school supplies, but I've been covering most expenses: housing, food, healthcare, childcare." "And you said he drained the college fund?" I nodded, anger flaring again. "Almost $25,000, which I'd been saving for years." Rita made some notes. "Was the account in both your names?" "Yes," I admitted reluctantly. "I added him as a joint account holder when Noah was born, thinking we'd both contribute." "That complicates things from a legal standpoint," Rita said. "Joint account holders have equal rights to the funds, regardless of who makes the deposits. So he can just steal his son's future and get away with it?" Sarah asked incredulously. "Not necessarily," Rita said. "Given the totality of circumstances, we can make a case that the funds were intended specifically for Noah's education, and that Jason breached his fiduciary duty by using them for personal expenses. It won't be straightforward, but it's worth pursuing." She turned back to me. "The guardianship is the priority, though. I suggest we file for emergency temporary guardianship today, followed by a petition for permanent legal guardianship. We'll need to demonstrate that it's in Noah's best interest to remain in your care." "What about Jason's parental rights?" I asked. "We're not seeking to terminate them at this point," Rita explained. "We're establishing you as the legal guardian with primary physical custody. Jason would still have visitation rights, though likely supervised given the circumstances." By the time we left Rita's office, I had signed a stack of legal documents and written a substantial check. The temporary guardianship hearing was scheduled for the following week. Rita had also helped me draft a cease and desist letter regarding the misappropriated college funds, which would be delivered to Jason by courier that afternoon. "Do you think it will work?" Sarah asked as we walked to the car. "I don't know," I admitted. "But for the first time, I'm not just hoping for the best. I'm planning for the worst." We picked up Noah from school and spent the afternoon at the park, trying to maintain a sense of normalcy. I'd made an appointment with Dr. Martinez for the following day, for myself, not Jason. I needed guidance on how to handle this situation, how to support Noah through the confusion, and frankly, how to manage my own anger toward my son. That evening, as I was helping Noah with his bath, my phone rang. "Jason." I let it go to voicemail, focusing instead on Noah's elaborate narrative about his toy submarines battling sea monsters in the bubbles. After Noah was asleep, I listened to the message. "Mom, what the hell is this legal letter? You're suing me for Noah's college fund? And filing for guardianship? This is insane. He's my son. Call me back immediately." I texted Sarah, who was staying at a hotel nearby. "Jason got the letter. Not happy." She responded immediately. "Stand your ground. Remember why you're doing this." I took a deep breath and called Jason back. Finally, he snapped when he picked up. What's going on, Mom? Have you lost your mind? Hello to you too, Jason, I said, keeping my voice calm and measured. I'm doing what I should have done years ago. Making sure Noah has stability and security. By trying to take him away from me? His own father. No, by legally establishing what's already been true for years. That I am his primary caregiver. That I am the person who has been raising him, supporting him, and being there for him day in and day out. Because I've been working. Jason protested. Building a career so I can provide for him. And yet you found money for a luxury apartment and a BMW, I pointed out. While draining the education fund I set up for Noah. I told you I'm going to pay that back. Yes, and now we have legal documentation of that promise. Consider it insurance. Jason was quiet for a moment. Then his voice turned cold. You know what? Fine. If you want to play hardball, we can play hardball. Noah's my son. I don't need your permission to take him. A chill ran down my spine. Is that a threat, Jason? It's a fact. I'm his father. I have rights. And I'm his grandmother who has been raising him while you played house in Chicago. I have rights too, and more importantly, Noah has the right to stability and honesty, two things you seem incapable of providing. This isn't over, Jason said before hanging up. I sat in the dark living room for a long time after that call, staring at the family photos on the wall. There was Jason at his high school graduation, grinning proudly as I stood beside him with my arm around his shoulders. There he was with baby Noah, looking terrified but determined as he held his newborn son. What had happened to that boy? Where had I gone wrong? The next day, Dr. Martinez listened carefully as I poured out the whole story, occasionally wiping away tears of anger and confusion. You haven't done anything wrong, Eleanor, she said when I finished. Sometimes good parents have children who make bad choices. But this level of deception. I shook my head. It's not normal. No, it's not, she agreed. Based on what you've described, Jason is showing some concerning patterns that could indicate a personality disorder, or at least some significant issues with honesty, empathy, and responsibility. But diagnosing him isn't our focus right now. Supporting you and Noah is. We spent the rest of the session discussing strategies for talking to Noah about the situation in age-appropriate ways, and for setting firm boundaries with Jason. The legal steps you're taking are important, Dr. Martinez said as our time was ending. But equally important is preparing yourself emotionally. This type of family conflict can be draining, and Noah will need you at your strongest. I nodded, feeling both exhausted and strengthened by the session. For so long, I've made excuses for Jason's behavior. Blamed myself. Thought that if I just supported him enough, he'd figure things out. And now I see that I've been enabling him. And it stops today. The days leading up to the guardianship hearing were tense. Jason called repeatedly, alternating between angry demands and tearful apologies. I maintained the boundaries Dr. Martinez and I had discussed. I would speak with him only about Noah and only in a calm, factual manner. If he became hostile or manipulative, I would end the call. Sarah extended her stay, helping with Noah and providing moral support. She also reached out to several of Jason's college friends, trying to piece together when his behavior had started to change. Matt says Jason got really weird about money in their junior year, she reported after one such call. Started lying about having expensive things, taking credit for other people's work, that sort of thing. Around when Carly got pregnant, I noted. Sarah nodded. Matt thinks Jason never really accepted becoming a father so young. He was always talking about the life he should have had, traveling after college, focusing on his career. But he seemed to love Noah, I said, still struggling to reconcile the son I thought I knew with his recent actions. I think he does in his way, Sarah admitted. But loving someone and being willing to sacrifice for them are different things. The morning of the guardianship hearing arrived with a fresh complication. Jason showed up at my door at 7 a.m., dressed in an expensive suit and accompanied by a stern-looking man in an even more expensive suit. Mom, this is Howard Brenner, my attorney, Jason said when I opened the door. We need to talk before the hearing. I glanced at Noah, who was eating cereal at the kitchen table, watching cartoons on the small TV in the breakfast nook. This isn't a good time, Jason. It's exactly the right time, the attorney interjected. My client would like to resolve this matter privately, without the need for court intervention. Sarah appeared behind me, arms crossed. And my mother would like her grandson to finish his breakfast in peace. You can talk at the courthouse. Howard Brenner looked annoyed. Miss Mitchell, I strongly suggest. It's Mrs. Mitchell, I corrected. And I suggest you save your arguments for Judge Reynolds. Now if you'll excuse us, we need to get Noah ready for school. I started to close the door, but Jason stuck his foot in the jam. Mom, please. Just hear us out. Something in his voice, a note of genuine desperation perhaps, made me hesitate. I glanced at Sarah, who shrugged but nodded slightly. 5 minutes, I said. In the driveway. Noah doesn't need to hear this. Jason and his attorney stepped back and I grabbed my coat. Sarah stayed inside with Noah while I joined the two men by their car. Another luxury vehicle, I noticed. I've prepared a settlement offer, Howard began without preamble, handing me a document folder. Mr. Mitchell is willing to grant you temporary guardianship of Noah for a period of 2 years, during which time he will pay monthly child support of $800 and repay the college fund in full with interest. I didn't open the folder. And in exchange? Howard glanced at Jason, who looked uncomfortable. In exchange, you'll drop the allegations of financial misconduct and agree not to pursue any criminal charges related to the misunderstanding about Noah's living arrangements. Misunderstanding? I repeated incredulously. Is that what we're calling abandonment and fraud now? Mom, Jason said, his voice low and urgent. Please just take the deal. I'll make it right, I promise. I studied my son's face, the face I'd looked at with love since the moment he was born. There was genuine fear there, but also calculation. Jason had always been good at reading people, at figuring out what they wanted to hear. Why the sudden change of heart? I asked. 2 days ago you were threatening to take Noah by force. Jason looked away. Howard made me understand the reality of the situation. If this goes to court, it won't look good for me. No, it won't, I agreed. But that's not why you're here with a settlement offer. What's really going on, Jason? Howard cleared his throat. The specifics of Mr. Mitchell's motivations aren't relevant to. They are to me, I interrupted. I'm not signing anything until I understand what's happening. Jason sighed heavily. Vanessa's father found out about Noah. About everything. He's not happy. He says I can keep my job, but only if I demonstrate responsibility, by taking care of my son financially and avoiding public scandal. And there it was. Not concern for Noah. Not remorse for the pain he'd caused. Just self-preservation. I see, I said, my voice steady despite the disappointment crushing my chest. So this isn't about doing the right thing for Noah. It's about saving your career. Does it matter why? Jason asked, a hint of his earlier defiance returning. You get what you want: legal guardianship, financial support. Why do you care about my reasons? I handed the folder back without opening it. Because intentions matter, Jason. Because Noah deserves a father who wants what's best for him, not what's most convenient. And because I'm done enabling your selfishness. Mrs. Mitchell, Howard intervened. I strongly advise you to consider this offer. Court proceedings can be unpredictable. And so can life, Mr. Brenner, I replied. I'll see you both inside. I turned and walked back to the house, my heart pounding but my resolve firmer than ever. I wasn't going to settle for half measures or promises made under duress. Noah deserved better, and for once so did I. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, wood-paneled and formal but not intimidating. Rita met us at the entrance, raising an eyebrow when I told her about Jason's last-minute settlement offer. Not surprising, she said. Likely an attempt to avoid having his behavior documented in court records. Are you sure you want to proceed with the hearing? I nodded. Absolutely. Judge Reynolds was a no-nonsense woman in her 60s who reviewed the case file thoroughly before calling us forward. Jason and Howard sat at one table, Rita and I at another. Sarah had stayed behind to take Noah to school, and then pick him up afterward, keeping him away from the proceedings. Before we begin, Judge Reynolds said, peering over her reading glasses, I want to be clear about something. This court's primary concern is the welfare of the minor child, Noah Mitchell. Not adult feelings, not financial disputes, not family drama. Just what's best for this 6-year-old boy. Are we all clear on that? We all murmured our agreement. The hearing itself was both more straightforward and more emotional than I'd anticipated. Rita presented our case first, the documented history of Noah living with me, Jason's sporadic involvement, the recent deception, and statements from Noah's teachers and pediatrician about his stability and well-being in my care. When it was Jason's turn, Howard attempted to paint a picture of a young father who had made mistakes but was committed to being part of his son's life. Mr. Mitchell has a stable career, Your Honor, and while he acknowledges that his recent actions regarding his son's living arrangements were unorthodox, he has every intention of being a positive presence in Noah's life moving forward. Judge Reynolds looked singularly unimpressed. Mr. Mitchell, would you care to explain in your own words why you told your mother you were taking your son to live with you in Chicago, but instead returned the child to her neighbor without her knowledge? Jason shifted uncomfortably. There was a misunderstanding, Your Honor. A misunderstanding, the judge repeated flatly. That lasted for 2 months? I was trying to figure out the best arrangement for everyone, Jason said weakly. I admit I handled it poorly. And the college fund? Mrs. Mitchell alleges you withdrew approximately $25,000 that had been saved for your son's education. Howard jumped in. Your Honor, as a joint account holder, Mr. Mitchell had legal access to those funds. However, he fully intends to repay the entire amount with interest. Judge Reynolds turned back to me. Mrs. Mitchell, you've been Noah's primary caregiver for most of his life. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor. Since he was 2 years old. And you're willing to continue in that role, despite these complications with your son? Absolutely, I said without hesitation. Noah's well-being is my only concern. She nodded, then turned back to Jason. Mr. Mitchell, do you oppose the granting of temporary guardianship to your mother? Jason glanced at Howard, who nodded slightly. No, Your Honor. I recognize that Noah is settled in my mother's home, and that disrupting his routine would not be in his best interest at this time. At this time, Judge Reynolds repeated thoughtfully. She studied some notes for a moment, then looked up. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm granting temporary guardianship to Mrs. Eleanor Mitchell for a period of 6 months, during which time Mr. Mitchell will have supervised visitation rights to be exercised at Mrs. Mitchell's residence or another location agreed upon by both parties. She fixed Jason with a stern look. Additionally, Mr. Mitchell will pay child support in the amount of $1,200 monthly, retroactive to the date of filing. He will also repay the entirety of the college fund within 90 days, with interest at the statutory rate. I heard Jason's sharp intake of breath at the child support amount, which was significantly higher than what he'd offered. Howard whispered something to him, and he nodded stiffly. At the end of the 6-month period, the judge continued, we will revisit the arrangement. If Mr. Mitchell wishes to pursue increased visitation or shared custody, he will need to demonstrate consistent involvement in his son's life, completion of a parenting class, and full compliance with the financial obligations outlined today. She glanced between us. Are there any questions? No, Your Honor, Rita responded. Howard shook his head. No, Your Honor. Good. I'll expect monthly progress reports from the visitation supervisor. She banged her gavel. We're adjourned. Outside the courtroom, I felt a curious mixture of relief and sadness. We had won. Noah would stay with me with legal protection in place, but there was no joy in the victory. My relationship with my son had fundamentally changed, perhaps irrevocably. Jason and Howard huddled by the elevator, deep in conversation. As Rita and I passed, Jason looked up. Mom, he called. Can we talk? Alone. Rita gave me a questioning look. You don't have to. It's okay, I assured her. I'll meet you at the car. Jason dismissed Howard with a nod, and we moved to a quiet corner of the hallway. So, he said, his expression unreadable. You got what you wanted. This isn't about what I want, Jason. It's about what Noah needs. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar from his childhood that it made my heart ache. I know I messed up. Badly. But did you have to take it this far? $1,200 a month is going to be tough. And 90 days to repay the college fund. You should have thought of that before you took it. I said, my sympathy limited. And before you lied to everyone about where Noah was living. I panicked, he admitted. When Vanessa and I got serious, I didn't know how to tell her I had a kid. She comes from this perfect, wealthy family. Her father is basically my boss. I was afraid of losing everything. So instead you risked losing your son? Your integrity? My trust. Jason looked away. I never meant for it to go on so long. It just spiraled. One lie led to another. And suddenly I was in too deep. I studied my son's face, trying to see past the handsome features to the person beneath. The thing I can't understand, Jason, is how you could do this to Noah. How you could use him as a pawn, confuse him, abandon him with my neighbor. He's just a little boy who loves you. Something flickered in Jason's eyes, shame perhaps. I do love him, Mom. I know it doesn't seem like it, but I do. Love isn't just a feeling, Jason. It's actions. It's showing up. It's putting someone else's needs ahead of your wants. Like you always did for us, he said quietly. I tried, I acknowledged. I wasn't perfect. But I never would have abandoned you or lied to you the way you did to Noah. We stood in silence for a moment, the gulf between us seeming impossibly wide. So what happens now? Jason finally asked. You heard the judge. You pay child support, repay the college fund, attend supervised visitations, and take parenting classes. If you do all that consistently for 6 months, we revisit the arrangement. And us? What about our relationship? I sighed, feeling the weight of decades of love and disappointment. That's up to you, Jason. I'll always be your mother, and I'll always love you. But I don't trust you right now, and rebuilding that trust will take time and consistent effort on your part. He nodded slowly. I understand. And I'm sorry, Mom. For everything. I wanted to believe him. Part of me, the part that had rocked him to sleep as a baby, bandaged his skinned knees, and celebrated his achievements, desperately wanted to throw my arms around him and say all was forgiven. But the stronger part, the part that had finally found her voice, knew better. Show me, I said simply. Don't tell me you're sorry. Show me with your actions. As I walked away, I felt something shift inside me. A realignment of priorities, a strengthening of resolve. For too long, I defined myself by what I gave to others, measuring my worth by my sacrifices. But true strength, I was learning, sometimes meant standing firm, saying no, and demanding better for Noah and for myself. The next several months were a study in cautious rebuilding. Jason attended his court-mandated parenting classes and showed up for his supervised visits with Noah, though there was an awkwardness between them that hadn't existed before. Noah, perceptive as children often are, sensed the tension and became quiet and watchful during these visits. Why is Daddy's friend always here when he visits? He asked one day, referring to the court-appointed supervisor who discreetly monitored their interactions. She's helping Daddy learn to be a better parent. I explained, trying to be honest without burdening him with adult complexities. Noah considered this. Is that why he brought me a new toy every time? Because he's learning. Out of the mouths of babes. Jason had indeed fallen into a pattern of bringing expensive gifts to each visit, toys, games, clothes, as if material things could bridge the emotional distance his actions had created. I had a frank conversation with Jason about it after that. Noah needs your presence, not presents, I told him. Spend time with him. Read to him. Help him with his homework. Get to know who he is as a person. To his credit, Jason listened. The next visit, instead of arriving with a gift-wrapped box, he brought ingredients to make cookies together and a children's science book about dinosaurs, Noah's current obsession. The visit was still awkward, but it was a step in the right direction. Financially, Jason struggled with the court-ordered payments. He had to downsize from his luxury apartment to a more modest one-bedroom and sell the BMW. The college fund repayment required him to take out a personal loan. He complained about it at first, but I remained unmoved. This is what responsibility looks like, I told him when he mentioned how tight money was. This is parenting. 3 months into the temporary guardianship arrangement, I received an unexpected call from Vanessa, Jason's ex-girlfriend whom I'd met that fateful day in Chicago. Mrs. Mitchell? This is Vanessa Taylor. I hope you don't mind me calling. Jason gave me your number. I was surprised but curious. Not at all. How can I help you? Actually, I was hoping to help you, she said. Or at least provide some information you might find relevant. We arranged to meet for coffee the following day while Noah was in school. Vanessa was as polished in person as I remembered, but there was a warmth to her I hadn't noticed before. "I wanted to apologize," she said after we'd settled at a quiet table. "The day we met, I had no idea who you really were or what Jason had been hiding. If I had known." "You have nothing to apologize for," I assured her. "You were as much a victim of Jason's lies as Noah and I were." She nodded, stirring her coffee absently. "That's partly why I wanted to talk to you. After I found out the truth about Noah about Jason's finances, I did some digging. What I discovered was concerning." Vanessa explained that her father, as an executive at Jason's company, had access to certain information. Jason had been taking out loans against his future earnings, had maxed out multiple credit cards, and had even been caught submitting fraudulent expense reports at work. "My father gave him an ultimatum: get help for his spending and lying or lose his job," she said. "That's what prompted the settlement offer before the court hearing." "Is Jason getting that help?" I asked, both concerned and unsurprised by these revelations. "He's seeing a therapist who specializes in financial disorders and compulsive lying," Vanessa confirmed. "It's part of the agreement with my father. And," she hesitated, "he's been diagnosed with something called narcissistic personality disorder." The term wasn't entirely unfamiliar to me. I'd done some reading since Jason's deception came to light, but hearing it applied to my son was still jarring. The therapist thinks his need for status and admiration, combined with his inability to accept responsibility, stems from deep insecurity, Vanessa continued. Apparently it's not uncommon in high-achieving environments like the business world. I absorbed this information slowly. It didn't excuse Jason's behavior, but it did perhaps explain it. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked finally. Vanessa looked me straight in the eye. "Because I think you deserve to know what you're dealing with. And because despite everything I think Jason does love Noah in his way. With the right help, maybe he can learn to be the father Noah deserves." Before we parted, Vanessa shared one more piece of information: the name of Jason's therapist, with his permission for me to contact her. It was a small gesture of transparency that gave me more hope than anything else had in months. The 6-month mark approached with a mixture of trepidation and cautious optimism. Jason had maintained consistent visitation, completed his parenting classes, and kept up with his financial obligations, though not without struggle. Noah had slowly begun to relax around his father again, especially once the supervised visits moved from structured activities to more natural interactions. The day before our follow-up court hearing, Jason asked if we could talk privately. We sat on the back porch while Noah played in the yard, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the grass. "I've been doing a lot of work in therapy," Jason began without preamble. "About why I lied, why I took the money, why I've been so disconnected from Noah." I nodded, encouraging him to continue. "The therapist says I have this condition, narcissistic personality disorder," I finished. "Vanessa told me." Jason looked surprised, then resigned. "Of course she did." "Well, yes. Apparently, I've been trying to create this perfect image of success because I never felt good enough otherwise. When Noah came along, he didn't fit that image I was trying to project, so I compartmentalized him, kept him separate from the life I thought I wanted." He rubbed his face tiredly. "It sounds horrible when I say it out loud. It is horrible. But I'm working on it. Learning to recognize when I'm making choices based on appearance rather than reality." "That's good, Jason," I said, genuinely glad he was getting help. "It's important work. The thing is," he continued, "I've been thinking about tomorrow's hearing, about what to ask for." My guard went up immediately. "And?" Jason looked out at Noah, who was intently examining a caterpillar on a leaf. "I'm not going to ask for custody," he said quietly. "Not even shared custody. Not yet." I couldn't hide my surprise. "You're not?" He shook his head. "Noah is happy here. Stable. Loved. My life is still a mess. Financially, emotionally. I'm only now starting to understand how screwed up my priorities have been." He turned to face me directly. "You were right, Mom. About everything. Noah deserves better than what I can offer right now." I studied my son's face, looking for signs of manipulation or hidden agenda, but saw only exhaustion and what appeared to be genuine remorse. "What will you ask for then?" I asked. "Continued visitation, unsupervised. The chance to be part of his life while I keep working on myself. Maybe in another 6 months or a year, we can revisit the custody question, but right now." He swallowed hard. "Right now, I need to focus on becoming someone worthy of being his father." I reached out and squeezed his hand, the first affectionate gesture between us in months. "That's the most responsible thing I've heard you say in a very long time." The next day, Judge Reynolds seemed equally impressed by Jason's request for continued visitation without pushing for custody. She granted me permanent legal guardianship of Noah, with Jason retaining parental rights and unsupervised visitation twice weekly. The child support and college fund repayment terms remained in place, with a review scheduled for 1 year later. Outside the courtroom, I found myself standing next to my son, both of us watching Noah, who was contentedly reading a book in the hallway, oblivious to the legal proceedings that had just determined his future. "Thank you," Jason said suddenly. "For what?" "For not giving up on me completely. For being willing to let me try to fix this, even after everything I did." I thought about how close I'd come to cutting Jason out of our lives entirely, how tempting it had been to build an impenetrable wall around Noah and myself. "Everyone deserves a chance to change," I said finally. "But Jason, this is your last chance with me. I mean that. One more deception, one more broken promise to Noah, and we're done." He nodded soberly. "I understand." As we walked toward Noah together, I reflected on the journey of the past 6 months. I had discovered strength I didn't know I possessed, set boundaries I'd never dreamed of enforcing, and found a voice that had been silent for too long. The cost had been high. My relationship with my son would never be the same, but the transformation in myself was worth it. "Gamma, Daddy, can we get ice cream to celebrate?" Noah asked, looking up from his book with hopeful eyes. "Celebrate what, buddy?" Jason asked, kneeling to his level. Noah shrugged. "That we're all not mad anymore." Jason and I exchanged a look over Noah's head, a look of shared understanding that whatever our adult complications, this child's well-being would always come first. "Ice cream sounds perfect," I said, taking Noah's hand. "And maybe after, we can talk about that camping trip your dad mentioned. Would you like that?" Noah nodded enthusiastically, reaching out to take Jason's hand with his free one, connecting us in a small but significant circle. As we walked out of the courthouse into the bright afternoon sunshine, I felt lighter than I had in years. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. Jason's recovery would be a long process with likely setbacks, and Noah would have questions and feelings to work through as he grew older and understood more. But for the first time, I wasn't carrying everyone else's burdens alone. I had learned that setting boundaries wasn't selfish, it was necessary. That demanding respect wasn't harsh, it was healthy. That putting myself first sometimes meant those I loved would ultimately benefit too. At 58 years old, I had finally discovered that being strong was infinitely more powerful than being nice. And as I watched Noah swing between his father and me, giggling with the simple joy of the moment, I knew that my newfound strength was the greatest gift I could have given him. The example of a woman who stood up for herself, who demanded truth and accountability, who refused to accept anything less than what she and those she loved deserved. "Where to first, ice cream or the camping store?" Jason asked Noah. "Ice cream. Always ice cream first," Noah declared with the absolute certainty of a 6-year-old. I laughed, feeling the warmth of the sun on my face, and the warmth of possibility in my heart. "Ice cream it is. And then, whatever comes next." 1 year later. I never imagined how much life could change in a year. Today is Noah's 7th birthday, and our backyard is filled with the joyful chaos of 21st graders running through sprinklers, devouring cake, and taking turns whacking a dinosaur piñata. I watch from the patio, sipping lemonade and smiling as Jason helps the kids aim at the swinging papillon.